Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today's top 5 is going to be a bit different than usual. Now I've asked a couple of friends to recommend a Nintendo game for Nintendo November. So let's have a look at who's recommending these games. So first up we'll have fellow Scotsman Stuart from Generation Pixel. Then we'll be saying Arit to Mark from Hawaii the Games. Then we'll have the gruesome twosome Graham and James from D-Review Ting. And lastly, we have Virtual Frog who'll be ribbiting their recommendation. So with that in mind, here's 5 Nintendo games that you should play. Right, you guys are up now.
So here at Generation Pixel, you're not likely to hear much in the way of Nintendo. And that's not because I don't like Nintendo, it's just simply because I was born in 1973 in the west coast of Scotland. And to be frankly honest, Nintendo did not care about me as a demographic. In my early days I was weaned on the Atari 2600 and the ZX Spectrum, so it was microcomputers all the way mostly for me. And when Nintendo finally did make a small blip on my personal gaming radar, I saw them as a company for children, and they didn't manage to change that personal opinion for quite a long time. But of course, when Chicken Phillips reached out and asked me to recommend to you one game from the Nintendo library that you must play, well, there was only one that I can hand on heart recommend you to play, and that is Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Now of course, anyone out there watching this who has played this absolute masterpiece of a game will know exactly why I'm telling you to play it. And I know those of you who have played it will be rushing back to your collection to get this back on and give it another go. Because for the first time in my experience, Nintendo stepped out of their comfort zone and into the shadows. Because Eternal Darkness is as far removed from the eternal cycle of Mario, Pokemon and Zelda that you normally get from Nintendo, that this became a must-play game. Now for those of you who have not played Eternal Darkness or know nothing about it, I can't go into too much detail because too much detail could absolutely ruin the experience that this game delivers. But just as a taster, this is what you're getting from Eternal Darkness. It's a horror game up there with the original Resident Evil games, well, up to Code Veronica X anyway. It has wonderful pre-rendered backgrounds and also some wonderful techniques and camera tricks that really bring that pre-rendered background to life. It has a deep, creepy, mystical story that has your main protagonist weaving through time, and you're faced with a myriad decisions and puzzles that will make a huge impact to the game itself. This was far ahead of its time, but the icing on the cake, no, not even the icing on the cake, the cherry on top of the icing on the cake was the sanity meter mechanic. Now this I can't talk about just in case you haven't experienced it. The experience that you get from the sanity meter, or the lack of sanity meter in Eternal Darkness, is something that will absolutely blow your mind. So Mr. Chicken Fillets, for your audience, I recommend that they get out there and, as you would say for Eternal Darkness, get it played.
Alright, I hope you're all doing well. So when I was asked to pick my favourite Nintendo game of all time, my life has always turned into Sophie's Choice. How can you choose one game out of the library that Nintendo have got over the years? I was born in 1983. My first ever system was the Amstrad, but my first console I got for Christmas in 1991, I think it was. Getting old now, so I do forget. It was the Nintendo with the built-in Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I believe it was a PAL exclusive. So Nintendo's been with me since the late 80s all the way up to today, where I'm still playing on my Switch regularly as a handheld. Sat in the sitting room playing on that whilst the wife is watching some rubbish on the telly. So that's a lot of decades of Nintendo goodness that I've played over the years. So to pick my choice, I was like, obviously you've got your Marios, your Zeldas, which, you know, I absolutely love, your Mario Karts, just everything. But I thought, what games or genre was inspired by a Nintendo game that I just absolutely love? And anything in that category, I'm gonna get day one. So for me, it has to be Super Metroidvania. Instantly, as soon as you turn the game on, that music just hits you straight away. It's still one of the best soundtracks in gaming for me. And what I love as well, I love visual storytelling in games, not having to have a cutscene. So the first major room you go into, there's dead bodies on the floor, there's a broken test tube, you're wondering what's going on. And then the next room you're in, you're straight into a boss battle. You're underpowered. You're like, how am I going to get through this? And then you manage to scrape through, after just starting the game, the first boss battle. And then there's a countdown. Things are exploding around you. The graphics are just absolutely gorgeous. Even today, they still hold up. It just looks absolutely amazing. Like I said, the countdown's going, there's things exploding around you, the lights are flashing, the music's pumping. Just what a start to a game. I struggle to think of many games that instantly just go, right, this is our game, bang, have it. I just absolutely love it. Like I said earlier, what Super Metroid gave was that formula. Yes, you had it in Metroid previously, but Super Metroid really just nailed it. Even on the Game Boy, you had the Metroidvania as what we now know its style, but Super Metroid really nailed it. Like, it's just, what I love about it is that sense of being lost, not knowing what to do, seeing a door and you're going, why can't I get through it? And then maybe after half an hour wandering around corridors, killing aliens in this case, you get that power up and you go, I'm going to be able to open that door now. It's just that feeling of like accomplishment, discovery, adventure. And it just holds up so well to today. It's still one of the best Metroidvanias out there. This and Castlevania Symphony of the Night really did produce just my favourite, I think, genre of all time. And even my favourite series of all time, if you go to it, Dark Souls and Bloodborne. There's arguments that that's got inspiration from the level design of Super Metroid. 1994, I believe it came out. And for games to still be inspired maybe by Super Metroid is just absolutely amazing. And then last year, the new Metroid came out on the Switch, and it was like, okay, you've had all these games for the last, going on 20 years. We're back now, and we're going to show you how it's done, and they just absolutely nailed it again. So for me, my number one pick of Nintendo games of all time is Super Metroid.
Everybody, Graham here from The Review Time. Now, the game that I have that I think you should play isn't the game that you probably think it's going to be. If I can start by just saying a quick wee quote. A famous person once said that the night is always darkest before the dawn, meaning that when things seem at their worst, the sun is about to rise and things are about to get better. And the game that I am giving you today is Superman 64. Now, hear me out. So Superman 64 is without a doubt one of the worst games, not just released on the N64, but just released in general. It's a 3D action platformer released by Titus in 1999, and it's based around the animated TV series of Superman that was released about the same time. Titus, of course, also brought you the likes of Hercules, Xena, and Virtual Chess. Now, I have spoken about this game before on the channel, and it does keep coming up, but the reason why this is my game that I think you should play is because this puts every other game into a perspective. So if you think a game's kinda meh, you throw this in, give this a bash, and that game that's suddenly meh is suddenly amazing. Now in the game, Lex Luthor has captured Lois and taken her into the VR world. Why? Don't know. Superman follows her in. Why? I don't know. He just does. When you're in there, you have to traverse through 14 different levels, and these are a mixture of mazes and general kind of stages. Each one is worse than the last. It progressively gets worse. You have to fight enemies like Darkseid in it, which should be cool, but then you remember it's in VR, so it doesn't mean anything. But the game is just atrocious. It handles so poorly, it looks awful. And the fact is that the game had been passed around and delayed and worked on by so many different people that by the time it came to come out, they just kind of shat out what they had. And unfortunately, this is what they shat out. Now, Titus aren't exactly known for their high hitters. They have got a couple of good games and a couple of good racing games and stuff like that, but their platformer games aren't the best. And they do have licensed games, which is shocking. But if you want a good game to play, Jet Force Gemini on the N64. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to Nintendo November! So, John asked me to pick out what game I would choose out of the entirety of the Nintendo library. What game is my most beloved game out of all the systems? So, today we're going to talk about that. Now, Nintendo isn't my go-to console. I am a Sony guy through and through. So I had to really think about what I was going to pick here because I absolutely love PlayStation. So when it came down to Nintendo, well, I had a really long, hard think about it. And to be fair, the Game Boy is probably one of my favorite systems of all time. However, until recently, my favorite game was on the Game Boy. But it is no more. No, it is not. I absolutely love the Game Boy, but recently there's been a game that has just stole my heart. Nintendo, this is just a game that was done right. So recently, my Switch has had a bit more love, and it's mainly because of this game. This game, released by Square in 1994, originally came out on the SNES, but, well, it wasn't. It was the Super Famicom. It never actually made its way over here, and that is until recently. Recently, it came out on the Nintendo Switch, and I gotta be fair, this game is possibly my favorite Nintendo game, okay? So what game are we talking about? We are talking about Live Alive, or Live Alive? However you want to say it. So this game is absolutely fantastic, and I had a ton of fun playing it. In this game, you play as 8 different characters running through different scenarios, depending on different times in history, and as well as the future. You're able to play the game in whatever way, shape, or form you want. So in this game, you can play it in as different periods in time. So you can start off with a prehistoric, you can then go into like a Wild Wild West scenario. They've even got a little sci-fi alien sort of game in there as well. And each of these stories are roughly anywhere between half hour to about 2-3 hours long. And that is just perfect. And this is, I think, is one of the main reasons why I picked this game. Is because you can just pick it up and play, and you can have an entirely new experience just in a short amount of time. Now, I actually haven't finished playing the game just yet. So I haven't played through all of the stories, so I can't comment on them all. But I've played through, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the different stories so far. This is just a ton of fun. I haven't actually found a single story that I've disliked. So despite all these games being slightly different, the one thing that's consistent throughout it all is the battle mechanic. So the battle mechanics within the game, you play as a turn-based sort of classical RPG type thing, mixed in with a bit of tactics. So the battle system over all of the games are pretty similar, but they are a ton of fun. And like I say, for me personally, that's a style of RPG that I like to play. So again, it ticked all the boxes. One of the things that I really want to point out about this game, and again, I haven't played the whole of it yet, but what I will say is all of the soundtracks are absolutely incredible. There is one level where you play as a robot called Cube, and I gotta be fair, that had an amazing atmosphere to the game. It was absolutely incredible. It really gave me sort of like Alien sort of vibes, which was absolutely terrifying at points. I love that Square brought this back. I think that was completely the right move. And if you haven't played this game, you are doing yourself a disservice. You need to get out there and play it. Like I said, the games are short. They're pretty much all fun. I haven't had any point where I felt bored with playing any of these experiences. They were a ton of fun. I don't understand why we didn't get it in the first place, but it came out on the Famicom. It didn't do so well, so what are you gonna do? But they made it right now. They made it absolutely right now. So my pick for Nintendo in November is Live Alive.
Dragons. They're scary. Game of Thrones dragons? Scary. Pete's dragon? Yeah, he's scary. Bubble Bobble dragons? Not really. Here's Bubble Bobble on the NES. The best way I can describe it is if Doodle Jump was turned into a full-fledged title. Bubble Bobble is a 1 to 2 player game which has you transform from a human into a dragon that blows bubbles. Oh. Our heroes' names? Bub and Bob. Come on, couldn't you find something a little bit more threatening than that? Like most retro games, the mission is to save the damsel in distress, or damsels if there's 2 of you. To reach them, you need to go through 100 levels, reach the bottom of a dungeon, and fight a final boss. As stated, your weapon of choice is bubbles most of the time. You trap them inside and then pop them to kill them. Now, I would recommend this game solely on the amount of content it has to offer. Here's an example. The game is 100 levels long, right? Now that's a pretty lengthy game as it is. But after you beat it, you unlock Super Bubble Bobble, which is a hardened version of the original 100 levels with some different textures and harder enemies. With the addition of some bonus level variations, you're looking at over 200 levels to play through. With the game only giving you 2 lives, there's no way you'd survive long enough to make it to the end. So there's other ways to get 1-ups. It might be a pickup, it might be collecting letters which spell the word extend, or it might be collecting points from some food items. It doesn't matter too much since the game was nice enough to have a continue option and a password system. The best thing about Bubble Bobble is that each time you play, you're going to encounter something new. You might take too long on a level and an unkillable ghost shows up named Baron von Blubble, or Blubba? Can we get some better names in here? You'll discover some bubbles filled with water, fire, and electricity. How about some candy with special powers? Alcohol in an NES game, shoes that quadruple your speed, necklaces that shoot spikes all over the room, giant gems falling from the ceiling, a tiara that makes it rain apples killing everyone on screen, and so much more. Like way too many items. But for those reasons and more, it's definitely a game everyone should try.
And there we have it, 5 Nintendo games that you should play according to those lovely people. Get them played! Thank you for watching the video, and please remember to like, share and subscribe. Tatty bye!